Hello again. It has been a bloody minute. While I've been gone, I've actually been working very hard on my new album, which just came out recently. Briar 0721. Out now on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and whatnot. Please listen, because random people on the internet caring about me makes me happy. Speaking of which, thank you all very much for 500 subscribers. I'm not sure why I'm on with the video. Where today it's once again another Patreon requested album review, where Polonized has asked me to review the debut album by Scatman John, entitled Scatman's World, which is not really the type of thing I'd normally be talking about on this channel, but here we are. So Scatman John is probably somebody you either recognise as a slightly cheesy, dated one-hit wonder, and/or a bit of a meme. But the guy actually has a pretty rich backstory that I didn't know about before I went into this album, so I will quickly go over that first before I get into the actual music itself here. Born in California, he grew up with a severe stutter, which ended up making a lot of his childhood pretty miserable. Eventually, though, he got into music and spent his early adulthood actually as a jazz pianist. Though at the beginning of the 1990s, he moved to Berlin and had an agent who proposed the idea of combining scat singing with a kind of Eurodance style of music. And in his early 50s, he ended up with a massive semi-self-titled hit single, which launched his career into the stratosphere. After a second hit single, Scatman's World, he released 3 albums under the name Scatman John before, tragically, at the age of just 57, he passed away of lung cancer in 1999. Which kind of makes his music a bit difficult to talk about and critique, because while I'm definitely going to express some mixed feelings in this review on the music itself, and to a lot of people his music is a bit of a laughing stock, a bit of a joke, my deepest rooted respect for the man comes from the fact that he ended up turning his biggest, most crushing insecurity directly into his signature form of artistic expression. And I know a lot of people chuck around the word inspirational in a rather trite way, but if that isn't a brilliant story, then I don't know what is. And I'll lead that into the things I enjoyed the most about this record. Of course, I'll start with, the scatting itself, which is, to be honest, absolutely brilliant. It takes some serious talent to do the kind of long vocal runs he performs on this album in such a free-flowing and precise way. They can be a real joy to listen to and are probably the greatest asset of this album. And it's not that surprising that the tracks that featured the most actual scatting were often among my favourites on the album. And going into individual tracks, I guess I've got to start off with the 2 that everyone knows, Scatman's World and simply Scatman. The 2 have basically the same appeal and I put on roughly equal footing. Well, to be honest, I'm kind of glad I wasn't around to, you know, be hearing these involuntarily on the radio all the time, because, of course, the kind of meaningless hooks of gibberish would get pretty stale pretty fast, but at the same time, they're also both kind of killer. Like, there is a reason that this stuff becomes big. It kind of slaps. Whether you're enjoying it ironically or not. I would say that his first single just gets the edge for me, just has a better driving pulse, and I just generally enjoy more of the elements throughout. Some very fun rap verses, some good synth work, less of the elements in the album that rub me the wrong way, which I will get to later. In fact, I'm just gonna get into this now, my general bigger problems with the record as a whole. First of all, just the whole Eurodance sound, to be honest. The entire Eurodance genre is the most 90s to ever 90s. Can be quite difficult to describe, but you just know a Eurodance track when you hear one. Sharp stabs of obvious MIDI pianos, these very particular, very distinct bass and synth sounds, pretty much endless optimism in the lyrics. It's an absolute time capsule to a specific time, even though I didn't live through it. I imagine maybe if you did, this is a bit of a nostalgic sound. And if you have a soft spot for it, then you're probably going to enjoy this album quite a lot throughout. But it's also, a lot of the time, pretty horrendously cheesy. It just depends if you can stomach it or not, and while I'm generally pretty tolerant, some of the deep cuts are quite difficult to listen to. The intro to the album Welcome to Scatland right off the bat sends the cheese level through the bloody roof. And particularly in the first half of the record, tracks like Only You, Sing Now, and Pop Star have a pretty undeniable cringe factor at times. Some pretty lame lyrics and hooks that made me go, ouch! And some production that even for 1995 was not exactly cutting edge. But I will say this, the positivity, optimism, good messages and good intentions of this album make it so difficult to hate. It is really quite charming and just far too inoffensive to make me angry at all. I mean, the whole concept of the record is a fundamentally nice idea, centered around the idea of a fictional place called Scatland where everyone lives in harmony, everyone is equal and tells the truth, and the guy never sounds like he's phoning it in at all. Continuing with what I was saying about structure, by the way, I feel like the first half of the album is like the two greatest songs on the record sandwiched between the biggest duds, whereas the second half is just generally more solid across the board. The track Time is actually packed with some pretty killer hooks and some better sounding production, as well as another excellent scat section towards the end. I enjoyed the way Mambo Jambo utilised a harmonica on top of what almost reminds me of a trance beat. Refreshing change of pace. We'll ignore the weak hook on that one. And while Song of Scatland has some lyrics that just really don't flow together very well rhythmically or in terms of rhyming patterns, and is oftentimes gorgonzola flavoured, I enjoyed how it explored the concept of Scatland more directly than any of the other tracks on the album. It also had some production that completely unintentionally gave off quite a few, like, Cat System Corp Oasis vibes, what with its tweeting bird sounds and pretty dated synths. And Hi Louie is another more scat-focused track, this time set on top of a kind of mock jazz instrumental, which made it feel far less dated. I almost wish he lent a bit more into electro swing aesthetics. And speaking of jazz, he essentially finishes the record with a jazzed up version of the biggest hit, Scatman, which is kind of a fantastic idea that paid off very well. It's a lot of fun and I cannot deny that. But yeah, the album as a whole, as I said, is one that's quite difficult to talk about and pinpoint my feelings on, because I'm not going to sugarcoat the fact that I found a lot of parts of this album to be very tacky and not particularly musically enjoyable or up my street at all. But again, the charisma, the optimism, his unique brand, and absolutely lovely, if in the end rather tragic story of his life. I haven't listened to the next couple of records he put out. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up doing so. Online research tells me that they didn't really gain much popularity at all. But with this record, I feel like he really achieved what he set out to achieve. And for what it is and what it's trying to do, it's not a bad album. As you probably know, I normally post my own album reviews of things I feel enthusiastic about, and in those I don't like to put ratings at the end, but when I get a Patreon requested review that I go into blindly, I do like to put just a little number at the end of the video to summarize my feelings on it. And once again, that was very difficult to decide upon, but musically speaking, and about the way that this generally makes me feel, I'd probably balance out my feelings to about a light 6 out of 10. But like, my feelings towards just Scatman John in general are positive. Really admire the guy and what he did, and I'm very sad that he's no longer with us. Thanks for the bangers. And the drip. Anyway, thanks for watching. I have got some more exciting plans soon in conjunction with my recent album release. I don't know how long it's gonna take, but recent endeavors have taught me that my art and my YouTube channel and my music and everything, it just takes however long it's gonna take. I can't really predict what I'm taking on or how much time I'm gonna have, so hope to see you again soon, but thanks for watching and see you next time.